Hi, for once I'm not the only fairy on this channel. Andrew, and this is Katie's Toys. I almost said a different F word, so happy Pride. Today on MIA 80s Ladies, we're going to be talking about Tink, or Tinkerbell, from the 1991 movie Hook, directed by Steven Spielberg. It's not something I like, either the toy or the movie, so I really have no skin in this game. Let's get started. Hook starred Dustin Hoffman as Captain Hook and Robin Williams as an adult Peter Pan. It sort of was a sequel to Peter and Wendy, where Peter had actually grown up. Wendy had very much grown up into a grandmother, and Peter ended up sort of getting almost willing amnesia and falling in love with her granddaughter and then having kids of their own. And it was really more a matter of, Captain Hook just being obsessed all these years later, abducting Peter's children and kind of forcing him back into, Neverland to take it back and have their final confrontation. It's very paper thin, and for a Spielberg joint, it's a little gutless, I'm not gonna lie. But speaking of gutless, there was a toy line, of course. This was the time of, Kenner doing Waterworld, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, all the Batman movies. There was a lot of toy lines, based around what was supposed to be huge landmark summer blockbusters. A lot of these were, did well enough, but well below expectations, and far well below the franchise that they were expected to be. The Hook line is almost notorious. There's a lot of Peter Pan, a lot of Captain Hook figures, a couple of Lost Boys, and Smee the Pirate, played by Bob Hodgson, which is incredible. But just an ugly, disappointing line. The paint was bad, the likenesses were not good, even the costumes weren't quite great, which isn't necessarily the toy's fault. A lot of toys are, they have so much time they need to make the toy that they usually use pre-production, examples, then go from there. And so the actual final look of the film is often disparate from the movie. Not going to lambast that, but the toys are notoriously ugly. Also, a bit of a side note on the toys. While doing research, I found that they had done these sort of two role-play items. One just being a huge broadsword, and the other being Captain Hook's sort of Swiss Army hook, where a bunch of stuff would sort of fly out of it. In the commercial, both the kids are just wailing on it. And as someone with a one-eyed dog, I'm like, y'all need to find Jesus. The real twist, or even the hook here, is that the movie figures were not made by Kenner. One would assume, and I think that might be the expectation going in, is that these were Kenner figures, because Kenner had, a monopoly on stuff like that. They were doing Jurassic Park, they were doing all the Batmans. They were doing everything. And Kenner has a very specific style. You look at it, despite the evolution between the 70s to the 90s, you know exactly what you're getting. I feel like people expected that going into Hook, and, expectations are premeditated disappointments. So, on top of the figures not living up to the Kenner brand or quality, there's just sort of this built-in grossness to it. People just, sort of had loftier goals for the toys that just did not deliver. That's not to say Mattel doesn't have its own voice and style. They make a mean playset. They've got a good handle on the engineering of battle features and that kind of thing. And Hook was, and also tried to do both these things, but paint, likeness, that kind of thing, not great. So you have to bear in mind that this was their spokesmodel all through the 80s. And frankly, even today. So look into that face and tell me that sculpt and, faces are Mattel's strong suit. Mattel also seemed to be following the Kenner formula, which is probably, again, why people sort of associate the two brands that aren't connected at all. Kenner was, at this time, in the early 90s, sort of, was already bought by Hasbro and was following Hasbro's lead. If the toy line was a success, they would do Wave 2, and any women or minor supporting characters would go in that wave. Hook was reliant on the movie and the toy line being a huge success, and Tink was held back for that wave. We have very blown out, blurry images of her, but she looks okay. Not exactly screen accurate. The actual movie version with Julia Roberts was a little more, raggedy, we'll say, but she was there. And she's a huge part of the Peter Pan lore. Likewise, the probably Toy Fair catalog images we have seen of Wave 2 included, again, a playset that would have been incredible. This huge treehouse that, Mattel would have knocked out of the park. They also talked about Captain Hook's ship, which was never photoed, but, we heard about it. Likewise, again, would have been pretty great. And then, just some ancillary characters, including, Rufio, who was in a food fighting outfit. I don't recall this. Also, side note, if you liked Rufio, if he was your favorite character, if he caused some stirrings, you're gay. And I'm sorry you had to find out this way, but happy Pride. The final verdict here isn't great, and again, I have no skin in this game. I don't really care, to be perfectly honest with you. I know some people consider Hook to be a cult classic. It did okay in the box office. It didn't, blow up. It didn't, cause more sequels. The toy line failed. No one's really. I don't see a lot of fan art. I don't see a lot of customs. I don't see a lot of demand for this. So I'm sure there's an audience out there for it. When I did post about this on Instagram some time ago, I was shocked how many people that post reached, and how many people were interested in the Tink figure. And I'm baffled. So I'm here on YouTube to see if lightning can strike twice. I'm really curious to see what the level of love for this movie is, what the level of love for Tink is. Julia Roberts is fine. This was very peak Julia Roberts in 1991, but even that, it didn't grab me. As I always say, though, you never know. There's always some small company who's young and scrappy and, just needs license rights to something that they can make. And Hook is probably pretty cheap, so you never know. There might be, just some company who just, they just get you. If you're a Hook fan, they're gonna hook you real good. And I would imagine, as many others like Sectors and the Cell kind of thing, they'll probably kind of lead with Tink, just sort of get their claws in you and promise that you'll come back for more. But on that note, that's all I got for this. I don't expect it. I might be pleasantly surprised. I'm not buying it either way. I'm an advocate for these women. Most videos I do, I would happily fork over any amount of money for them, but not this one. So with that, thank you for watching. Please comment, like, subscribe. If you liked Rufio, you're gay, and I will see you next time on Gayties Toys.